And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, Crew Cats. It is the Crew Corner podcast, and we finally have some games that matter to talk about. My name is Matt.
And my name is AJ.
And we are ready to get going. First, our lead story. Word has it, one Federico Higuain is on the verge of signing with DC United. The rumored numbers is to be a salary of $100,000 and a role as a player assistant coach. AJ, what are your thoughts?
I wish that it had been in Columbus. It's going to be really interesting to see the true details of this because, you know, if it's $100,000 that they're paying him as a player, he'll have to receive a manager contract, which is, you know, at least they will announce those numbers. The Players Association doesn't tend to like to, or the MLS doesn't like to release how much the players themselves are getting paid. But it leads me to believe that there was a little bit of hurt feelings or emotions associated with Pipa leaving the Crew, that, you know, them saying, hey, we don't want you as a player anymore. We would like to keep you as an option, as a part of the organization. And it was always reported that he wanted to continue playing and that that the team just stopped negotiating with his agent to keep him as a player. So it'll be really interesting for him to be going to DC, though, because that'll return him with introduce him to Ola Kamara, who had his best 18 months as a player in MLS with Higuain.
This is true. Do you think the Kamara connection was part of what drew him there, or that this was mainly I want to keep playing, and you'll also offer me this coaching role that I can be a part of too?
They also have an Argentine number 10. So, you know, even if he's the backup Argentine number 10 who plays the exact same way, you know, you suddenly are, Pipa has better connections. You know, DC keeps having this problem with trying to sell off their number 10s to Europe, and they keep evaluating them for too high. I think the last time they wanted $10 million, and for Lucha Acosta, and there was the whole thing with him. He was supposed to go, I think it was PSG or something.
Yeah, PSG.
And they went so far as to have a physical with him, and they were taking pictures, and he was going to have the Jumpman kit, but it fell through because DC wanted too much money, or MLS wanted too much money. Having Pipa has played for 4 clubs all over the world. His brother has played for 3 of the biggest clubs in the world. It's suddenly you have a true connection to Europe. All of a sudden you have Gonzalo Higuain possibly coming into DC because he visits his brother during the summer. So you'll have a moment where there will be Gonzalo Higuain at the training facility with DC, just hanging out.
One of the jokes running around Twitter this morning when all this was going down was the idea that DC was actually thought they were signing Gonzalo Higuain, and that's who they're like, well, you'll have a much better time here than you did while you were at Chelsea. And Freddie's like, what? Yeah, that's what it was. That's what was going on. But it's weird, like, the reaction I've seen so far, the fans seem
angry,
and I don't understand why. And maybe it's just because I'm not sentimental.
It's a sentimentality. It's also a, like, if he was going to accept $100,000 to be a backup number 10 and an assistant coach, why the hell did he have to move to do it? It will cost him more to pull his kids out of school and sell his house and buy a new house and move all of this stuff. By the time that's all done, that's, a tenth of his contract is gone.
I'm sure the club is paying for. I'm sure the club is paying for the vast majority of that.
Right, but like, what if you needed a number 10 coach enough that you were signing Higuain as a coach, and that was one of your intentions? Who dropped the ball in doing, really talking to him and making sure he understands that, we'd like to keep him on the crew. Maybe, and this, I've seen a couple of people say, this online, maybe it was really, not a good breaking of ties. That there are some people that are starting to see, like, JJ's gone, Eddie Opoku is gone. That's one thing. Those are drafts. Those are little, but like Will is gone. Pipa's gone. Like these are big parts of the team.
I think I mentioned it in one of the other the videos that we did for the channel was that there are only 5 players on the roster.
It's actually 7.
7?
Yeah, because I forgot about Josh Williams and I don't remember who else it was.
Well, still 7. There's only 7 players out of 24 or so.
27 now.
Of 27 now that are left from the Greg Berhalter era.
Yep.
And that is in basically 2 transfer windows. Because they didn't really have one. They didn't really have a winter transfer, an off-season transfer window last year.
I mean, there was a little bit of last year, but it was mostly like last winter, but it was mostly David Guzman and David Accam.
And that neither of those worked out all that well.
Well, and David Accam was intentionally not supposed to work out for us. His contract was being paid for by Nashville, but he was being paid as a DP by Nashville, and the roster rules are such that he couldn't go play for Nashville's USL team under that contract because he had an MLS DP contract as opposed to just an open contract the way like Fernando Adi had for when he signed for Cincinnati. They could pay him whatever they wanted, and he wasn't having to follow the MLS rules because Cincinnati hadn't officially received their MLS club when they signed him. That's the difference. Is David Accam was already an MLS DP, and so all they did was transfer his contract to Nashville, but he had to stay under contract by a MLS team, and shockingly, the crew could pay half of his salary and keep him as a TAM player.
Does it seem to you like there is a certain level of with this front office? I don't want to say unprofessionalism because I don't think that's the right term, but maybe just like a general disinterest in anything from the pre-court regime, basically.
I think that's not an unjustified thought, but I think one of the bigger things is I don't believe that Pat and Caleb and Tim have the type of they don't have the sentimentality because they weren't around for it. Pat, he was sort of around, but he was Zach's coach. He was the national team goalkeeper coach. So when he comes in, he starts directly coaching Zach Steffen. You go, oh, they're planning on Zach Steffen being the number 1 for ever and ever and ever and ever. So when Pat stays on, and you start hearing about like, oh, Pat's hanging out, even though Zach has been traded to Man City, and he's going to stick around and keep coaching Zach, but he should have gone with Greg to be the national team goalkeeper coach, and then all of a sudden he's resigned the national team goalkeeper thing, and he's all of a sudden he's not technically on the crew staff, and then what's going on? Oh, he's the general manager of the team. Well, for years Greg was the GM. He was the technical director. He was everything. Greg was everything. So now there is an actual committee of people making decisions. We have an official head scout who was not, they had a press conference Tuesday, and he was not at the press conference to answer questions because he was doing his job.
So when it comes to just the personnel, then is it just something that is it a sentiment thing amongst the fans?
I think the fans have more sentimentality for it. And part of that, Dr. Pete kind of fills he's just like a giant, I own the team, but I'm still one of you, and that leads to him having really interesting behavior every once in a while, where you're like, oh, thanks, Dr. Pete, for not being boss man, I own the team, but like, hey, let's hang out and drink champagne.
Hey guys, I got an idea for you. Boat tailgate.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like that's a Dr. Pete idea, which that I understand came from the supporter summit that you guys were at. Was it last week? At this point?
It was last week. Last week Tuesday.
Yeah, so talk a little about that.
The supporter summit has traditionally been kind of an interesting thing. It's a little bit. It's one part gathering together and making plans on how we're going to do away trips. And this particular one, instead of having separate supporters groups like we used to, we have one large supporters group. It's just the Nordeca.
So what all did it entail? Like, who was there? What were you guys doing?
So it started out with the new board of directors for the Nordeca, kind of introducing themselves and explaining what they're doing. So now we have somebody that's in charge of communications and somebody that's in charge of logistics for away games. Shout out to John. That's he's a lot of fun. He's got the kids that run around. He's Kruby's dad.
Oh, he's the Kruby's dad?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, were there any representatives from the team there?
That's the second part of it. We have the Nordeca leadership kind of explains things, and then it turns into a Q&A with the front office. And in the past, there's, Andy's been there, or whoever was in charge at that time. And the 2018 one, we managed to get Greg to come in the midst of the Save the Crew thing. And Greg got asked like 6 questions because 90% of that supporter summit was us attempting to make Andy cry. And famously, he was shaking halfway through. That was what was very different. Was last year when the team got bought, they did the supporter summit at North High Brewing, and they had it in the actual production room. And it was kind of cool because, Pete was there and Tim was there, and it was our first real time to ask. And there was a lot of people being really excited about it. This year it was different. This year it was, okay, the shine has worn off. Let's make sure that you understand, like the supporters saying to the front office, let's make sure you understand we are not going to let you screw up and fail to do your jobs the way the previous administration did.
So that must have been an interesting take, particularly at that supporter summit, because I think that was still kind of at the end in the wake of the trap trade. Plus, it was just after the kit release, if I remember correctly, that right as of now still does not have a sponsor on it. So we still don't know what's going on there.
It was somebody said that it was the most hostile, directly hostile they've ever seen a supporter summit be.
Hostile.
Hostile.
Hostile to me is like, you better answer this question in a satisfactory way or them's going to be fighting.
And there were a couple of questions that were that way. There was, somebody asked about the league taking on national level sponsors that screw up with our local sponsorship, and how much is the front office pushing back against them.
What's an example of that for those of us who aren't as in the know?
Well, okay. The league just took on Body Armor as a league isotonic sponsor. Isotonic is the category of of drinks that's Gatorade and Powerade and those kind of sports drinks. The Crew has has a water sponsorship and kind of an in-stadium sponsorship with Pepsi. And so, whether, if we have a Pepsi billboard right next to a Body Armor billboard on the edges of the field, that can get into a problem where we could lose a local sponsorship and a local income in order to appease a national thing. You see that with like the national team games where a stadium will have the stadium, like Crew Stadium has Pepsi cups. And so the national team, it's referred to in the business as a cup over, where it'll be just a blank Coke cup that everything has to go in, but it's still Pepsi being distributed into those cups.
Yeah, because Body Armor is owned by
Coke.
And our sponsor is with Pepsi. So, I mean, for me looking at it, it's like, okay, well, we're just trading one national competing chain for another national level competing chain. Is it more like that, or does it have more to do with just generally being told what to do?
It's a little bit of that, but also, if the league complains that the Crew and Kansas City and some of the smaller teams, Salt Lake, famously, this is what the crux of the Save the Crew thing is our business metrics are down. So we are not taking in local sponsorships and local deals. That's the kit sponsor, the stadium sponsor, on-field sponsorships, training center sponsorships, those type of things. If you really hamstring us if you take on a national level sponsor who directly competes with a local sponsor, and so we'll lose those local sponsorships. So, like, for instance, the league has a sponsorship with Papa John's. That means that we can't have any other pizza sponsorships. We can't have a local pizza sponsorship. There was the ongoing rumor last year, and I don't know if it's completely dead yet, that there is a deal being worked out by MLS and Chick-fil-A as the official either fast food sponsor or chicken sponsor. And I'm not sure how. This is one of those category things. And if you take on a national sponsorship of Chick-fil-A, that just eliminated White Castle, Wendy's, and half a dozen other fast food chains. And yes, what's fast food have to do with soccer? But that's money. Even if it's $1 million, that's $1 million not coming into us, and it makes us look bad.
Not to mention all of just the general connotations that come along with Chick-fil-A, and what particularly, as someone so eloquently referred to me several years ago, the neckbeard socialists in the Nordic, which I don't believe is true, by the way.
Most of us shave.
Taking a sort like. I don't see.
Speaking of which, can we get a shaving sponsor for the Nordeca? I'm going to look down the barrel of this camera. Somebody arrange a razor sponsor for us. Or how about bring Barbasol back as the Nordeca sponsor? Because some of us have fine, beautiful baby skin that requires sensitive treatment. And I can't use cheap razors.
No, we can't. But like, I'm just imagining like the one from last year. We had the Nina West. Dream big, be kind, go west. Brought to you by Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that it would have looked bad, and that was the thing is when, and there's a new MLS code of conduct now where it says that the banners can't be directly political, so it can't be advocating for a spot for a candidate. So yes, according to MLS code of conduct, there are several city council candidates who can't hang out in the Nordeca, even though they are Nordeca season ticket holders in the past.
All that means from a banner standpoint, it just means we have to get more creative about it. That's all that means.
But the thing is, when they were going after the Iron Front symbol, they were going after it in Seattle and Portland. They never dared we had the Iron Front banner. We had Refugees Welcome. You know, the capos in Columbus are the local St. Pauli's supporters group. Like in the Nordecke, you will see probably a dozen St. Pauli jerseys every single game, and it's usually the dark brown one, so it at least looks a little closer. But I mean, we straight up fly the St. Pauli skull in the Nordecke, and nobody dared confront us about it. Nobody dared publicly confront us about it. They might have like sent a nice little email of like, "Hey, can you guys not put the St. Pauli skull in between the things?" So, in response to any possibility of that, last year I happened to paint a banner that was the St. Pauli skull wearing a yellow construction hat. So it is in fact a pirate flag with a construction hat. If they have problems with pirate flags or construction hats, they can kiss my behind.
I think the supporters group, Jim Rome used to say back in the day, and I'm sure he still says it now, it's like, soccer is not a sport, it's a reason to riot.
Yes.
And it is so ironic, the level to which you will get, like, Proud Boys, and I think Iron Front's left-leaning.
They're anti-fascist.
Yeah, so you can get Proud Boys and Antifa.
The original anti-fascists.
Yeah, in the same stands, cheering for the same team.
You will very rarely... There was not an Iron Front. In the two clubs that have a bad white nationalist problem in MLS...
Being...
I'm not going to say their names because everybody knows who they are. Maybe they have lightning bolts on their scarves because they say that there's electrified rail to there. That you don't see an Iron Front problem there. You do see a lot of variety of skin colors in that stand, and yet nobody seems to be punching Nazis. But in Columbus, we punch Nazis.
It's kind of our thing.
Which is strange because we are a very right-leaning city. Columbus is, not to go down a deep political hole, but Columbus is traditionally very conservative.
Yeah. No, Columbus didn't start really becoming... Ironically, it was when they pretty much opened up all the business tours to anybody and everybody, and it kind of let those... we're going to it again. Kind of let those neckbeard hipsters in. And suddenly all those businesses started popping up, and you guys can fact check me on this. I bet at least half of this is incorrect. But yeah, historically, I remember growing up. I was saying in the video, I've been a Columbus resident my entire adult life, and growing up, I always remember it being a right-leaning city. Until basically I went off to college, came back, and I was like, "What the heck happened?" I'm not mad about it. But what the heck happened?
Yeah, it's there's an old Winston Churchill quote that kind of sums it up when it comes to like the diversity of the residents. To be young and conservative is to not have a heart. To be old and progressive is not to have a mind. It's an old thing. People tend to, once they hit a point where they're comfortable, they don't want things to impede on their comfort. Nobody wants revolutionaries that are, 80-year-old revolutionaries because they're not. What are they fighting a revolution for? So it doesn't make sense. And so like that's not to say either one of those things is wrong. I have very left-leaning and very right-leaning sides of my family.
Yeah, it's an interesting ideology because I think soccer is one of the few sports where like the political ideology is almost part of the game. Like you see it in Italy a lot. Like if you look
Italy
at the
is just 100% racist.
Yeah. Well, like Italy, like in Rome, like Roma is the more progressive-leaning team. Lazio is the more, I'll say, fascist-leaning team. That might be a bit of an overexertion.
It was paid for by the fascists.
So like it's part of the game, and it's something that let's be honest, America has yet to really reckon with this.
And that's the thing is like St. Pauli and oh god, I just forgot the name of their biggest rival in Amsterdam.
I have no idea. Eredivisie stuff is not my.
Yeah, so St. Pauli is very, very progressive, very
Yeah,
left-leaning, but they're militantly so. So it's not half the time it doesn't even matter that that their opponent is playing St. Pauli. It's that their opponent's fans are around. And they got lucky that for years they were in different divisions, that it was across town. You have the artists and the hipsters with St. Pauli, and then you have like these militant business capitalist, people with some of the other teams, and it got violent. I mean, the same thing could be said for Celtic and Rangers. Celtic and Rangers is it's in Scotland, but it is an extension of the Troubles. I actually nearly caused a fist fight in Edinburgh. Inverness, sorry. My in-laws, I sent my in-laws were in Scotland visiting, and I said if you could find me a Celtic T-shirt, that'd be fantastic. And
oh no!
So they went into a shop,
going.
and they found a soccer ball bag, like one of those drawstring bags, and she couldn't remember it. My mother-in-law couldn't remember if I was a Rangers fan or a Celtics fan. And I'm not a Celtic fan so much, but I have their symbol tattooed on the back of my shoulder. It's just a good luck 4-leaf clover. And so she asked the shopkeep which one she should buy. And somebody in the shop said, screw the Rangers. The shopkeep handed her a Celtic bag and got into it with the guy in the shop. And it almost came to blows. And that was just it's not even that like a team shop or anything like that. And
it's just a shop.
It's just a shop, and it's in Inverness. It's not even the same part of the country that Celtic and Ranger play in, but it's a connection. Celtic fans are Irish Catholic, and Rangers fans are Royalists.
Yeah. So circling back, I mean, how did the members of the front office kind of handle these?
They understand where we're coming from. Bez quite literally made the league rules when it comes to certain things. So, I directly asked him if how much the league is going to impede. There's that amazing plaza that that's on the stadium renderings that looks like it said it's supposed to hold about 3,000 people, and it's an outdoor concert venue, and it fulfills the need to have a stage as part of Crew Stadium without having a stage at Crew Stadium, which has been one of those things that Toyota Park and StubHub Center have had. People will complain about is the fact that it looks like a concert venue with a soccer pitch down on it. And it's, and that's reasonable. When they tore up the stands in 2007 into 2008, it created the Nordeca, but yeah, it took out 1,200 seats. It took out a fairly large chunk of identity of having people behind that stand. So, now we have it outside. Okay, so is that going to be some sort of MLS deal that, the venue is going to have? And that's what I was asking, because we have local artists who also are promoters in the city. We have DJs, we have rappers, we have country musicians, and we have a fairly good set of concert promoters that already exist that do amazing festivals at Montfray Stadium that have national and international level recording artists at. So is the league going to take control of it? And they kind of hemmed and hawed of we try to keep as much of that away from the league, and they're good about letting us keep control of that kind of stuff because they don't care about the day-to-day things. And Dr. Pete now infamously turned to Steve Lyon, the business director for the Crew, and said, on game days on every day that's not a game day, we can do whatever we want. And so that's kind of, and he got fairly solid applause on that. He wants to do really interesting things. He wants to have a movie screen in there, and he wants to do, everybody bring your chair and we do movie night at the stadium. He wants to watch the 2022 World Cup at the stadium.
I know we are a small potatoes show for now, and we probably will be for the foreseeable future. Having said that, like we should definitely try to get Dr. Pete on the show. I feel like the three of us could put our heads together and come up with some badass ideas to really grow the fan base and grow this club.
I think Pete has those ideas on his own. He did mention something that was a little odd. And
I would love to hear those ideas just in this setting.
Yeah, he mentioned that Sweet D has them. Wants to have a farmer's market at the stadium every Saturday that's not a home game, which sounds bizarre, but then when you think about it, like, Franklinton's sort of a food desert unless you walk up into Upper Arlington. So, like, some of that lower Franklinton area, yeah, that's a great idea. And yeah, there's going to be, a couple thousand new apartment units in the area between the White Castle area and then the new Chipotle and the Confluence Village or whatever. But, that's an interesting idea, and it's an interesting way of getting people to the stadium without soccer. And that's one of the things that I think they're trying to do.
Oh, visibility is key for this season.
And that's one of the things that everybody keeps, saying is there are so many people, and that's what people would stand up and say is, like, hey, there's no... You're not advertising in Dayton, and I drive all the way from Dayton to come see games. You should advertise in Dayton. People would love... And they're like, well, we're trying to focus on... we only have a finite amount of money.
We have a finite amount of money, and more importantly, and this is part of the reason that we wanted to start the podcast, was that people in Columbus, forget that we're here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's people that are talking... I've had conversations with people, and they're like, oh, it's too bad they moved to Austin. It's like, no, they still are here. We're playing our second season under ownership of Dr. Pete. Oh, who's Dr. Pete? He's the owner of Orthopedic One. Oh, the place that has 6 locations all over the city? Yeah, that guy. But he's the co-owner. Well, who else owns it? The Browns. The Browns own a soccer team? Yeah.
And it's like... It boggles my mind just the level to which
there hasn't been visibility for 15 years,
and that was by design.
Some of it was designed, some of it was
the last
just
5 of it
cheap.
was definitely by design.
Well, part of it is so much of it costs money, and the problem is that what they're fighting and what the fans are having to deal with, and it's coming across as a little angry and hostile, is they are trying to make up for the sins of the previous administration, whether it's business sins or marketing or whatever they did.
Just general lying in general.
Well, the lying is one thing. That's a completely different thing. But like being just generally cheap and not advertising, I'm not going to say the source on this because I like him.
A source told you.
A source told me, an anonymous source told me that the reason that they stopped giving Frankie tickets is it was not cost effective to give him 2 tickets every Friday for him to hand out downtown, which is horseshit. I try not to curse on this podcast now, but it's garbage. Like that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And it comes from them they want to make money on it as much as possible. So giving away things is not a money-making strategy. When they talk about like, oh, how do we get youth soccer kids? Oh, we have group sales. They could get a discount if they buy 100 tickets. Like that's not how you like. How about you take 100 tickets and you go to, Hilltop, to some of the local small run down.
The Hilltop shops, basically.
Yeah, and
we know what they are. They're
the soccer teams down there. Like you could, if you just went to the Somalian population, there's huge Somalian population in Columbus, and guess what I see them wearing? Real Madrid jerseys. I see a lot of Real Madrid jerseys.
There's a soccer fan base there.
There is. Westerville, I see more La Liga team jerseys than I see Crew jerseys while I'm driving around in Westerville. Like, that is unacceptable to me.
And were those the kind of questions that were getting posed at this supporter summit?
Yeah. And that comes across as hostile because the general tone is not a like, oh, we're so happy that the team is here. What can we do to help you? It's don't screw this up. Like, here is how we can, these are things that we are directly telling you, please fix. Because if not, you're going to screw it up.
I mean, did they take it well? Did they?
Yeah, they took it well.
Okay. I mean, that's ultimately the most important part is does the team understand and respond? Because it's kind of like, I don't necessarily expect them to solve all the problems. I just really expect them to understand all of the problems.
Right, but that's the thing is, so many of the people asking the questions, they are expecting them to solve the problems, which is okay. You know, it's one of those things that can seem it's very aggressive when it comes from place of, please don't mess this up. We worked really hard to save this team. Yes, you know, we so happen to find rich people to buy this team, but now these rich people who own this team must ensure that it's not badly run. And one of the problems is the local press all over Ohio is generally saying that the management team running the Browns is garbage. Well, we don't have that same management team, and the assumption is that they're going to screw up the Crew. So a lot of the people that don't see Bez on a regular basis, that don't see Dr. Pete, are worried about, like, hey, you're just expecting us to have 25 years of love for this team and to just come and tell everybody without telling people when a game is. Because the Browns don't have to really, like, the NFL teams locally don't have to advertise. The Ohio State doesn't have to advertise because you seek that out because they've existed for 100 years.
Yeah, and it's something that it is still, you know, it is in transition. Last year was very much a celebratory year off the field, and this year is going to be very different. Which brings us to the on-field product.
Yes.
The Crew have brought home their first trophy of the season.
I missed the Armadillo Trophy.
The Visit Tucson Sun Cup.
Yes.
After a win against Phoenix Rising, a draw against Red Bull New York, and a decisive victory against Houston Dynamo. Decisive. I checked into that game like 15 minutes in, thinking like, oh, I didn't miss too much. I missed a ton.
I fell asleep. I watched maybe
we're terrible fans.
I maybe watched a grand total of 15 minutes of it, and I missed all 3 of the initial goals because we were out.
You've been up since, 3 in the morning?
Yes. That's the thing is, like, I'd been at work, and so, like, I should be asleep, and I completely missed it because we'd grabbed something to eat, and then we get home, and the game had already started. Like, I wonder if anything important happened. 3 minutes in, Jossie scored? Okay. Zelarayan scored? Cool. I turned it on.
Did you see that Zelarayan
goal? Yeah,
goal?
I watched it in the highlights, because I didn't see any of the goals, except for the Houston goal, while watching the game.
That Zelarayan goal was just beautiful. Just beautiful.
It was beautiful, but it did execute it's an example of one of my fears for Zelarayan. Zelarayan is a very solo player. He's not the second to last touch. He is the last touch in his mind. It's to use a kind of a basketball metaphor, is, you know, he's not Scottie Pippen. Like,
no, he's going to attack the goal.
Right.
And it looks like that.
I'm just afraid that, like, a better set of center backs would not have let that happen. Like, depending on the center back, you step in and you kick that foot out from him. And there was a moment in the Phoenix game, that was how they prevented a couple of goals from him, is they essentially just stepped into him.
Yeah, and he'll find his way. He's definitely got his shooting boots on.
He's going to take a couple of knocks throughout
I
this
think
season.
I think Giassi is going to need to modify his game a little bit to go from a sort of a tap-in type of finisher to more of that rebound poacher. Because you could tell just by watching the Phoenix and the Houston game, you're going to see a lot of caroms come back onto the field.
Yeah,
For
and that
him.
Phoenix goal from Jossie was very much.
That one was pretty too.
It was pretty, but it was another one of those things of Zelleran was in against the line, and if he didn't see that gap, and it was a beautiful cross, and it was perfectly positioned. And
Not to mention the Phoenix goal, the Phoenix keeper did not make a great play on that ball.
Right, but Lucas never should have been in that position, and Jossie is fantastic about getting far post and getting into a good position. You see that in the national team, where he'll take so many people go near post because it's a shorter cross and it's easier to hit, and it's better for taking on that that positioning. How far that's going to be. But if you notice, Zardes scores best when he's far post on the left side. So he, on his left side. So if you can put in a position, that's why Luis Diaz and him combined for goals last year, and it's how it happened in the Cincinnati game. Luis ran right up the side, he crossed it in, Jossie was right off to the side, tap in. It's perfect. And that's how Jossie wants to do it. Now, like you were saying, though, he's going to have to learn how to do rebound thing, which was really more of Pipa's job in the past, which is okay. Like, it's okay that we want something more from him. I do think we need to get a coach, a finishing coach for him. And it's the same, Fernando Adi for the Red Bulls game. God, do we need to get a finishing coach for him? Because he's not finishing that last touch in good position. You can see he's thinking a little bit too much about it. And that's why, Etienne and him, Etienne crossing into him was not good positioning because he wasn't ready for that.
The other area of concern, you certainly have a few more concerns on the offensive end than I do, primarily in the final third.
I worry about the final third.
Their midfield though, it
was great.
Playing through the midfield after the pivot was so good. And you could see the development immediately. Because in the Phoenix game, everyone was in position, but they just weren't getting the balls. They weren't putting the ball on target.
Is so good. So good. He is exactly what we wanted out of that position.
He's making you forget all about that other guy.
Yeah, no. Because one of the things he has...
Again, not sentimental, ladies and gentlemen. Not sentimental at all.
It's a different type of defensive midfielder. He is playing an 8 role. So we're essentially running like a double 8. We're not running like an 8 and a pivot 6 the way we had in the past with, Will kicking it farther back and falling back in between the center backs. And I think that maybe, and you're going to get to this at some point, we have some problems with our center backs, with positioning on them. And I
think we have some problems with our back four settings in general. Those set pieces scare the crap out of me. And playing the ball out of the back scares the crap out of me, especially in that Houston game. Because watching Artur, I think it was Artur, just let four defenders just coalesce around him, led to that easy goal, and I think that was the one for the easy goal. And then the back pass to Room that just got turned over immediately, and Room has to go out and make a slide tackle.
Yeah.
Your goalkeeper should never be having to make a slide tackle. That's something that should never happen. And letting those,
some of that might be
a lot of it's communication.
Yeah, some of it's communication. Some of it is timing and chemistry that we don't have the real. They haven't been playing with each other.
Yeah, it's just not there yet, and that's why I had that video out. Don't I would if we get 9 points from these first 5 games. I think that's the over under is 9 points from these 5 games. Because you got NYC, Seattle, Real Salt Lake, Nashville, and someone else who was good too, who's now escaping me. But those first 5 are all like 4 of them are playoff teams. There's like 4 playoff teams in Nashville.
Yeah.
I think 9 points is your over under on that. So if you're listening to this, you're 9 points from the first 5 games, over, under, or dead on the money. Let us know.
And the Nashville game will be especially hard because Dax McCarthy has been around in a position to play against this crew, to play against the crew for a decade. He was with Red Bulls when BWP first came in, and he was there for some of the best times. He was there with Thierry Henry there, and then he gets traded to Chicago, and he's there for a couple of years. But he plays us 3 times a year, so he set up some of the best Chicago versus Columbus moments. So he knows how to play against Jossie Zardes. And he knows how to play against Artur. And that could be problematic. But Nashville has so many players on it that I don't know what they're doing. That they're so unfamiliar to me that I'm not sure what's going on. Like the Miami thing, okay, you have Robles as your goalie. I understand how Robles is going to play as a goalie. I don't know how Nashville's going to play.
No, they're definitely one of the biggest question marks this season. Not from an expansion standpoint, even though that
it looks like they put together a pretty good team.
And congrats to them, by the way, for getting their stadium deal hashed out too. That could have gone real south real fast. So you hate to see that. You know what I mean? But it is game week. So good news, Crew Corner Podcast will now be moving to a weekly format now that the season has started, and this is our first match preview.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I have not done as much research on this as I had hoped I would have the ability to, because, well, this is not my full-time gig yet. Please sponsor us. But from
there's
all,
not that much sponsorship in
I know,
soccer podcasts.
For that, but I mean, this New York team is good. I mean, this New York team is tabbed by most of the national pundits to win the East, and to challenge for that supporter shield, and it's mainly because they brought everyone back except for their coach.
Yeah, I mean, they've got, I'm just looking at who their designated players are. It's Jesus Medina, Alexandru Mitrita, and Maxi Morales. Maxi Morales is considered by most people in the league as the best number 10 in the league right now. And he is on, for the amount of money he's getting paid, he better be. But he's 32 years old, so he's very quick. He's got an incredible touch. He's got great passing. Okay, so that's great. How do you shut that down? Yeah. You have to make decisions on that. And that's kind of what I'm hoping happens, is that that they're taking the time this week. Yes, they're doing coaching drills with kids and doing it, but somebody takes the time to sit down and go all right, we have to shut down Maxi Morales. We have to shut him down. Now, they are playing, when we're recording this Wednesday, they are playing Wednesday night for CONCACAF Champions League.
At Red Bull Arena, by the way, which I'm sure their fans just love the heck out of.
Their fans hate the hell out of it.
So what's going on with that? Why are they playing in Red Bull Arena? Is there a Yankees game going on already, or what
no? The away team for CONCACAF Champions League is given a list of venues, and the CONCACAF is given a list of venues, and they make a decision. And so they have the option of Yankee Stadium or MetLife or Met Stadium or I can't even think of some of the other ones. They've used university places. They could have used Stanford's stadium. Or not Stanford. Princeton Stadium. They could have used something in Connecticut. They CONCACAF, and I think they're playing Saprissa, right?
Yeah, they're playing Saprissa.
CONCACAF and Saprissa has enough experience playing in the U.S. that they kind of know the venue setups, that they wanted to play at Red Bull. And that's an incredible field with a great locker room. It is the level that Saprissa plays at day in, day out. And they didn't want to have the horse crap of, getting dressed and then getting in a van and driving to wherever, if they were playing at some collegiate field or if they were playing at wherever that garbage pit that that Sky Blue was playing at in New Jersey a couple of years ago, that didn't even have locker rooms. They wanted locker rooms. They wanted hotels. They wanted to.
It's just a better infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a better
them.
infrastructure to play at Red Bull, and so the fans hated it, and they started slightly rioting on social media. And yes, there's only like 1,500 of them doing that, but.
And Twitter is not real life.
Twitter is not real life. But it's a bad look. It's a bad look when NYCFC is playing at Red Bull and where the league is threatening taking a team away because they don't have a stadium in Nashville. But New York has been around for almost 10 years and they haven't. They're the richest club conglomerate in the world.
And they don't have a stadium.
Yeah, and they don't have a stadium. So now there is some rumor that there's going to, at some point very soon, maybe in March, that there is going to be some sort of announcement and that they made a deal on some land in Queens or Brooklyn or the Bronx or something. And that is going to be very accessible. Now, people have done various sketches of, they took FC Dallas' stadium, and the footprint of it sits on top of the car parks that they have next to Yankee Stadium. So if you demolish the car parks next to Yankee Stadium, or you take that bunch of land that Anthony Bourdain was going to turn into a food hall in Brooklyn, imagine a stadium in Brooklyn that's accessible by train, that's right on the river.
I mean, they could do it.
That's a lot of money to do it, but money shouldn't be a thing for them.
For City Sports Ventures, money is not an object. Like, let's just be real for a minute.
And it's embarrassing.
Sheikh Mansour has the money.
And
is it dirty oil money? Yes, but it's still good. And the money's still good.
This morning, Wednesday, Don Garber said that by 2026, there will be 28 soccer-specific stadiums in the league. Now, that means that there'll be 4-ish teams that don't have, or 2 teams that don't have stadiums. Or I think he said, no, it's 26 stadiums that are soccer-specific, which means that, those 4 teams that don't have soccer-specifics, are they Atlanta? Are they Charlotte? Who is it? Is St. Louis building a soccer-specific stadium when they already have a football stadium?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true, because, Atlanta's not leaving the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
I would actually consider the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I watched a college football game on TV, and looking at it, it looks so weird without the supporter section, because you get that big raked supporter section that's behind the goal line. Well, that looks fantastic for soccer. It looks weird for football, because the sight lines are not great on, you're looking straight down. Okay, cool. So if the ball's coming the other direction, it looks better for soccer. So maybe Mercedes-Benz is a soccer-specific stadium that happens to have a football team that plays at it. The way
Arthur Blank owns both teams, so it's not like it matters.
Right, and DC United is a soccer-specific stadium that also happens to have a football team playing at it, because they have an XFL team playing there.
Yep.
I think Seattle or Portland also have a XFL team that plays at it.
I think so. Circling back to NYCFC, though, how do you see us matching up with them beyond Maxi Morales?
I think it all sort of depends on who is in certain positions. Like,
I mean, at the top, you will kind of get a better idea after the CCL match tonight,
Right.
kind of who their lineup is going to be. But I mean, based off of their projected starting, I mean, you got we'll work our way backwards. I mean, up at the 9, you got Giassi compared to God, what is his name?
well, they've got a couple of really great forwards. They have Ishmael. Surati is really good. You also have, Alexander Matrita as a forward that could start. Now, New York City, and you'll know the result of this listening to this tomorrow when it comes out, they're up 5-3 on aggregate. So do you put your best team as starters?
Yeah, and I think they're still making more money in MLS than they are in CONCACAF.
Oh, they make nothing.
So
in
they're
CONCACAF.
they're going to prioritize.
But the league
the
is
domestic league.
prioritizing CCL. They want them to win.
I can
So-
understand that, and again, there is a bias in the league towards the New York and LA teams, and even now, Inter Miami, even though they don't deserve it yet. And of course there is, because why wouldn't there be?
But I mean, they have. That's the thing is they have internationals at the forward position.
Yeah.
They have internationals. I mean, they have. I'm looking at their roster right now, and they have like 6 forwards. So are they considering wingers forwards on this? We have no idea what their new coach is how they're going to position them. Are they going to play double up front?
I mean, I think if you're the new coach, you just kind of have to let your players do what they won the East last year.
Right.
Don't forget, like they won the
So
East
pretty much
last
the same
year.
thing, our supporters were telling.
So pretty
to
much
our
the same
front
thing,
office,
our
their
supporters were telling
to
to
their
our
coach,
front
just
office.
don't
Their
screw this
their
up.
supporters
Yeah.
telling to their
You've
coach,
got good players.
just don't screw
let them
this
just
up.
let them
Yeah.
do.
You've got
what
good
they
players.
Were doing
Let them
and
just
we'll
let them
be fine.
do
Having
what they were
said that,
doing, and we'll
what
be
is
fine.
your prediction
Having
for
said
Sunday?
that,
I mean, this
what
is a
is your
noon
prediction
30
for
match.
Sunday? I mean, this is a
From what I've
noon
seen from
30
from
match.
the stadium ticket sales,
From
they
what
are
I've seen from
damn
the
near sold
stadium
out.
ticket sales, they are
And
damn near
from
sold
hearing
out.
this from players,
The
old and new,
and from
they
hearing this
prefer
from
12:30
players
games.
old and
Especially
new,
in
they
the
prefer
cold- in the
12:30
winter.
games,
Oh,
especially
yeah,
in the
just get
cold
out of
in the
there.
winter.
Well, you train.
because
Oh, yeah,
you
just get
train
out of there.
From 8 a.m.
Well, you
until
train.
noon.
They
So,
train from
when
8
you have
a.m.
a
until
7:30
noon.
game,
So
your
when you have a
body's
7:30
expecting
game,
to
your
be
body's
going to bed at that
expecting
point.
to
You're
to
expecting
be going
like
to
you've
bed
had
at
dinner
that
with
point.
your children.
You're
you've
expecting like
done all
you've had
this.
dinner with your
So
children.
when you get
you've
like a Saturday
done
game,
all
you
this.
wake
So
up.
when you get like a
you
Saturday
maybe
game,
go for
you
a
have
run,
you wake
you have
up,
breakfast,
you
spend
maybe
time
go
with your
for a
kids.
run, you have
Like,
breakfast,
there's
you
a
spend time with your
disconnect.
kids.
Yeah, and
Like,
I
there's a
think
disconnect.
Yeah, and I think
the main
with
reason they had those evenings,
that, I think the main reason they
had
had those
night
games in the
even
summer
now,
and fall is that they
it's
at
cooler,
the time
and
even
two,
now
especially as the
it's
season
cooler,
goes on,
and two,
especially in
as the
this town,
season
you
goes
don't want
on,
to compete with Ohio
especially
State.
in this
You're
town,
not
you don't
gonna
want to
win.
compete
You're just
with
not.
Ohio
And
State.
even though I think
You're
there are
not going
plenty
to
of
win.
times
You're
where I
just
think the
not.
product
Even though I think there are plenty of
is
times where I
more
think the
entertaining
product
on the field, and there's plenty of
is
people in this
more
town who will
entertaining
disagree with
on the
me,
field, and there's
those
plenty of
are
people in
free
this
to be
town who will
wrong.
disagree with me, and those people are free to be wrong.
But I honestly do think it is a better atmosphere.
But I honestly do think it is a better
in the O Block.
atmosphere
'Cause I've sat
in the
in O Block,
Nordic than
and
it
I've
is
sat
in the O
North-
Block.
well,
Because I've
stood
sat
in
in
the
O Block, and I've
And
sat in the
I can
Nordic.
tell you right now, the
stood in
Nordic
Nordic.
is way more
And
fun.
I can tell you right now, the
It's
Nordic
way
is
more
way
fun.
more
It just
fun.
is. And
It's
but the
way more
crew
fun.
and
It just
in
is.
the MLS
And
clubs
but the
don't
crew
want
and
to
this
compete
and the
with
MLS
college
clubs
football
don't
because,
want
and I
to
don't blame
compete
them,
with
because I
college
think from a
football
grand
because
standpoint, I
and I don't
think it
blame
is
them
a losing
because I think
fight.
from a
So the
grand
best thing you
standpoint,
can
I think
do
it is a losing
is
fight. So the best
to
thing you can do
schedule
is to
offset with them.
schedule.
Now that kind of has
offset
been
with
torpedoed
them.
because Ohio State keeps
Now that
getting
kind of has
primetime
been
Saturday
torpedoed
game
because
after
Ohio
primetime
State
Saturday
keeps getting
game.
primetime Saturday game after
They don't
primetime
even-
Saturday
yeah.
game.
Somebody said something on TV.
They don't
that
even.
They don't even
somebody said
set,
something in TV that they don't even
times
set
anymore for OSU games because
game
no,
times
they
anymore
don't.
for
When you announce the
OSU
schedule
games
because you just
because
announce
No,
like
they don't.
when
oh,
you
on
announce the schedule
Saturday,
because you just announce like
November
on
7th,
Saturday
they're playing
November
against
7th
Iowa.
They're playing
very much
against
like,
Iowa.
How good is Iowa? How
It-
good is
it's
OSU?
very much
Is it
like,
gonna
how
be a
good
noon
is Iowa?
kickoff?
How
Is it
good
gonna
is
be the
OSU?
3:30
Is it going to be a noon
kickoff for
kickoff?
the,
Is it going to be the
conference
3:30
headliner,
kickoff?
or is
that
it going to be
the
the
conference
national
headliner,
at
or
8
is it
that
going to
makes
be
it-
and that
the
makes it
national
hard
headliner
to
at
have
8 o'clock?
a home-
And
like
that
makes
makes
it
it
Ohio
hard to
State.
have
I'm kind of
a
okay
home
with the
thing,
fact
and that's
that
why,
we had
like, I'm kind of
our
okay with the
season
fact
at
that
home
we
back in
had
September.
our
Yeah.
season at home.
So-
back in
and I think
September.
that worked out very
Yeah.
well for us. But
So-
what
and
are
I
you
think that
expecting
worked out very
Sunday
well
from
for us. But I mean, what are you
just a
expecting
game
on
standpoint?
Sunday
What are you
from
expecting out
just
of this
a
team?
game
I think
standpoint?
a lot
What
of
are
it
you
will depend
expecting out of
on
this team?
I think a lot of it will
what
depend
midfielders
on
New York puts up.
what
If they put Maxi
midfielders
Morales up, that's,
New York puts
you know,
up. If they put Maxi Morales up,
that's- we'd have to
that's-
figure out a way to shut him down. If not,
We'd have
you
to
know,
figure out
is
a way to
it
shut him
Keaton
down.
Parks is in
if not,
there?
you know,
is
it Keaton
Alexander
Parks is
Ring?
in there? Is it
You know,
Alexander Ring?
James Sands?
I mean, does
know,
this team have the roster to
James
compete with them? I
Sands.
mean, I know
Does
this team has
have
had a
the
lot of
roster to
turnover
compete
and a
with
lot
them?
of
I mean, I know this team has
But
had a lot
how
of
are
turnover
we
and a lot of
compared to
upgrades.
NYCFC?
But
I
how
think
are
it
we
all sort
compared to
of depends on
NYCFC?
how we.
I think it all sort
what our
of depends on how we
strategy is.
what
and that's
our
the hope is that
strategy
Caleb
is, and that's
figures
the
it
hope
out.
is
So don't
that
play the ball out of the
Caleb
back.
figures it out.
So
We
don't
did-
play the
don't-
ball out of the
I
back.
don't think we play possession.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
we play possession.
I think it's a long ball.
I think we
set up.
I think
Yeah,
it's
and I
a
just
long
going
ball
to have to
set
run.
up.
Yeah, and I
players
just going to have
death.
to
And I think
run
we saw
your
that
players
in
to
the
death.
because
And I think we saw that in the because you watched the Red Bull match, I watched the other two.
Setting up
This
to
team
play
is
a more
definitely
counterattacking style,
setting up
'cause
to
you've
play
got
a
so
more
much
counterattacking
speed and
style
pace
because you've
down
got
the
so
wings
much
in
speed
Pedro
and pace
and Luis
down
Diaz
the wings in
that
Pedro
all you
and
got to
Luis
do is
Diaz.
basically get the ball to
That
about
all you got to
the
do
center
is basically
circle
get
level,
the ball to about
and then
the
just
center
fire it
circle
into
level,
the corner, and then just
and
have
then
Lucas
just fire it
and
into the corner,
Giassi
and then just
get
have
down there.
Lucas
That's
and
exhausting.
Giassi
It is
get down
it
there.
is
That's
exhausting,
And
but
that's where you're
It
kinda
is-
lucky
it
that
is
they picked
exhausting.
And
Derek
that's where
Etienne
you're
up, is
kind of
because
lucky that they picked
A,
Derek
he's got
Etienne
very
up
young
is
legs,
because
which
he's got very
super
young
helpful
legs,
when you're trying to play
which
this
that's
fast
super helpful when
moving
you're trying
long
to play
ball.
this
But
fast
you've also
moving
you've got
long
somebody
ball.
that
But
can
you've
do
also
what
you've got
Luis
somebody
Diaz
that
does,
can
not at
do
the same level.
what Luis
I would never
Diaz
say that
does,
anybody
not
can
at the
do
same
it, but
level.
Luis
I would
does
never say
at
that
the same
anybody
level.
can do it. what
But you
Luis
have
does
a
at the
situation
same
where
level.
you're
But
running
you
it
have
longer.
a situation
And
where
if we get in
you're
trouble,
running it longer.
we have
And if we
we
get
have
in trouble,
forwards that
we
could
have
step in.
we have forwards that could
You know,
step
we have
in.
some
We have
different midfielders.
you know
Sebastian
we have some
Berhalter
different
will be
midfielders.
back.
Sebastian
He's
Berhalter
no longer
will
on
be
a red
back.
card because
He's no longer on a red
preseason
card.
Doesn't count for the real world.
Preseason
Sebastian
doesn't count for the
Berhalter,
real world.
If
Sebastian
we play Max against
Berhalter,
Maxi Morales and it
if
gets
we
rough,
play Max against Maxi
Sebastian
Morales
Berhalter
and
will
it gets
break
rough,
Maxi Morales.
Sebastian Berhalter.
we also won't see him
break
for about
Maxi
5 more
Morales.
games.
Yeah.
We also won't see him for about 5 more
Sebastian
games.
Berhalter is young and
Sebastian
aggressive, and that's
Berhalter is
amazing. We
young
sort of
and
need that
aggressive.
position.
That's amazing.
He is,
we sort of need that position.
We don't really have
He
an
is,
enforcer out there
no.
right now.
We don't really have an enforcer
we need
out
to
there
make
right
a decision of
And
whether or not
we need
want
to make a
that
decision
kind
of
how
whether
do
or
we want
not
him to
we
play.
want
Like, 'cause
that
he at one
kind
point,
of. How do we want
when he
him
was
to
playing
play?
with the
Like, 'cause
academy,
he
he
at
was
one
playing as
point
like an
when he was
attacking
playing with the
midfielder.
academy, he was playing as like an attacking
Caleb,
midfielder.
I guess, was like,
And
hey, you're not
Caleb, I
as
guess,
fast
was
as
like,
Pipa,
hey,
so,
you're not as fast
maybe
as
don't
Pipa,
do that.
so
maybe we figure out a different
maybe don't
position
do that.
in midfield
Maybe
for you.
we figure
And
out
he,
a
I
different
guess he can
position
play
in
all
midfield
over
for you.
the midfield.
And he,
which
I
is
guess,
awesome.
he can play all
But, like,
over the midfield.
Okay,
which is
so
awesome.
What
But, like,
kind of midfielder
okay,
do
so
we want him to be?
what
What
kind of
kind
midfielder do we want him to be?
Artur to be?
What kind of midfielder do we want Artur to be? What kind,
and the player
like, do we
ability
have the
to
coaching
make
and the
it
player
change
ability
in our style
to make it
if we need
change
to?
in our
Like what
style?
kind of minutes are you
if we
expecting
need
out
to.
of like
what
Berhalter
kind of
and
minutes
Morris
are you
this season?
expecting out of like Berhalter
I think-
and Morris?
I think you're going to see a lot more than
I think-
either of us.
I think you're
want
going to see a lot
just
more
because
than
I think
either of us
Artur
feel
tends
wants
to
just
go
'cause it's
66
I think
up in the
Artur
midfield.
tends to
That's
go
the standard
66
joke is
minutes.
Artur plays
That's
66
the
minutes of every
standard
game.
joke is Artur plays 66
and
minutes of every
so
game.
then that's a question of when you pull
and so then that's a question of when you
it'll
pull
kind of be a decision
Artur,
of what
it'll
we want
kind of be a
the
decision of
tactics
what
to
where
be.
are we in the game
want
at that
the
Do we
tactics
want
to
where
be.
are we in the game
Do
at
we
that
replace
point?
him with a
Do
second
we
forward?
want
Do we put
do we replace him with a second forward? Do we put
Fernando Adi in? Do we put
Fernando Adi,
I
and
can't
do we
remember the name
put?
of some of the other forwards we have.
I can't remember the name.
You
of
know,
some
do
of the
we
other
put a
forwards
second
we have?
attacking midfielder?
You know, do we
in
put a
because
second
we need somebody
attacking midfielder
to kind of
in
move it around?
because we
do we
need
bring
somebody
in Berhalter
to
to
kind
be
of
a
move it
destroyer?
around? Do we bring in
Aiden
Berhalter to be a
Morris in
destroyer?
be
Do we bring
a center
Aiden
attacking
Morris in to
midfielder? 'Cause
be
he sort
a
of
center
is a
attacking
little bit of
midfielder?
both.
Because
He's good on the.
he
He's
sort
good
of
on the
is
pivot.
a little bit of
He's really
both.
good on
He's
the
good on
pivot.
the he's good on the pivot.
Berhalter,
He's
really
really
good
good
on
on
the
the
size
pivot.
to be a really
Berhalter
great
He doesn't
pivot
have the
right
size
now,
to
and
be a
that's partly
really
because
great
he's
pivot
18
right
years
now,
old.
and that's partly
Like,
because he's 18
when,
years
between
old.
18 and 22,
Like,
a lot of guys
when
will
between
shoot
18
up
and 22,
6 or 7
a lot of
inches
guys
when
will shoot up
maybe put on
6 or
a
7
stone worth of
inches.
weight.
when
Yeah, there's more
maybe
the
put
more
on
the
a
weight
stone
gain
worth of
filling out
weight.
than
Yeah,
the,
there's
than
more
the
the
height
more
at
the
that
weight
point,
gain
but
filling
absolutely,
out
like
than the
I
height
look
at
at
that
both
point.
of the, and like
But absolutely,
they,
like
they are
I look at
babies.
both of the. They
Right,
are straight
neither
up
one of
babies.
them
They are
is
babies.
Vinny Jones.
They are
Right,
straight
neither
up
one of
babies.
them
Vinny Jones
is
at
Vinny
their
Jones.
age was
You know,
gigantic.
Vinny Jones
and
at their age was
claims he was
gigantic,
never taking any
and
pills. He was just
claims he was never
drinking
taking
and
any
eating.
pills. He was just
Well,
you know
he would-
drinking and
yeah,
He
eating.
would drink and he would eat.
Well,
and he would crush people's
he would
testicles.
drink and he would eat.
kick people
and
in
he
the
would
face.
crush people's
And
testicles.
do
And
we
kick
want
people in the
there-
face?
There
and
is nobody
do
like
we
that
want
in MLS.
there
Do we want
is
Sebastian
nobody
Berhalter
like
to
that
be
in
that?
The
MLS.
MLS
Do
has
we want Sebastian
someone
Berhalter to be
did an
that?
The
article about
MLS
this
has
last
someone
year.
did an
And
article
it was,
about this.
it was
last
ironically
year.
alluding to
And it was
Austin FC.
it
The
was
MLS
ironically
has no
alluding
villains.
to Austin FC. The
The
MLS has
closest
no
we had
villains.
to a villain ever.
The
Yeah.
closest
was like
we had to a villain
Zlatan
ever
Ibrahimovic. And
was
like he was too
Yeah.
good.
Zlatan
He was too
Ibrahimovic.
good. He was
and like he was too
unfortunately
good. He was too
to
good. He was
really be
unfortunately
that much of a
too
villain. Like,
prolific
to be a
to really
villain, like,
be
you need
that
to-
much of
you
a
need to
villain.
be one
Like
of
to
those
be a villain, like
defensive
you need to
that's
be
just
one of those
willing to go to
defensive
ground at
midfielders
every
that's
opportunity.
just
The last
willing to go to
person
ground
to
at
be
every
that kind of
opportunity.
villain
The
was
last
Drogba.
person to
Yeah.
be that kind of
And
villain was Drogba.
we saw how that worked.
Yeah.
He blew out
and
somebody's knee.
we
He-
saw how that worked.
You know,
he
he
blew
got
out somebody's
to
knee.
be 40-ish
he, you know, he
years
got
old.
to be
Played
40
USL in
years
Phoenix.
old.
He
played
bought
USL
into the
in
team
Phoenix
with Fallout
he
Boy.
bought
and
into the team.
They
with
own Phoenix
Fallout
Rising.
Boy, and they
Is that
own
actually
Phoenix
what
Rising.
that song is about?
No.
Is that actually
Okay,
what
'cause
that song is
the
about?
Fallout Boy song
No.
Phoenix. Just
Okay,
No,
because
they just
the
happened to
Fallout
own-
Boy
they
song.
just
They just happened to
No, they
own
just
Phoenix
happened to
Rising.
own
Okay.
They
Phoenix
just happened.
Rising.
They just
I'm like,
happened
don't
to
tell
own
me
Phoenix
that's how it
Rising.
actually
Okay.
worked out.
I'm
No,
like,
but
don't
it's a
tell me that's
convenient
how it
tie-in
actually
that you
worked
can
out.
use as
No,
an
but it's a
entry
convenient
music.
tie-in.
It
that
is,
you can
and the
use
first
as
time
an
I heard
entry
that
music.
song,
It
it's
is,
off
and
the
the
Save
first
Rock
time
and
I
Roll
heard
album,
that
for those of you
song,
who are
if
listening.
it's off the
Which
Save
didn't
Rock and
say
Roll
rock
album
and
for
roll.
those of you who are
No,
listening.
Which
it
didn't
really
say
didn't.
rock
And
and roll.
more on that
No,
later. Like I said, that's not what this channel is about. but if
More
you
on
ever
that
wanna
later.
talk
Like I
rock and
said,
roll
that's
with
not
us,
what this channel is
we're your
about. But
guys.
if you
If
ever
you
want
ever
to talk
wanna
rock and roll with us,
talk,
we're your guys.
difference
If you ever
between
want
Fall Out
to
Boy
talk
albums,
the difference
I
between
will
Fall Out
talk about how
Boy
great
albums,
Under the Cork
I
Tree
will
is,
talk about
till
how
I'm blue
great
in the
Under the
face.
Cork
No, you-
Tree is.
Fantastic
Stop
album.
Till
talking
I'm
about
blue in
your
the face.
students'
No, you-
schoolmates.
Fantastic album.
Precisely. So that is all the time we have today
Precisely.
here for Crew
So that is
Corner.
all the
We've got
time we have
games coming
today
up. We
here
are-
for Crew Corner.
Again,
We've got
just
games
jacked
coming up.
for
We are
games that matter.
again just
we are moving
jacked
to a
for games that
weekly
matter.
format for this
We are
show.
moving to
So
a
basically,
weekly
here's how it's gonna
format
work,
for
and
this
we've
show.
hashed
So
this
basically,
out a couple
here's
times,
how it's
but
going to work, and we've
we're gonna
hashed
keep doing it
hashed
so
this
y'all
out a
know.
couple times, but
So
we're going to keep doing it
AJ,
so y'all
you
know.
are the
So
season. you are the
AJ,
season
you
ticket
are
Nordic
the
member.
season. You are the
AJ
season ticket Nordic
is
member.
going to be providing
AJ
instant match reactions
is going to
directly
be
from the
providing you
Nordic
instant match reactions
the game.
directly from the Nordic after the game.
I would like him to try and
Um,
grab interviews with fans.
I
after
would
the
like
game,
him to
a
try and
la
grab
Arsenal
interviews
Fan
with fans
TV.
after the game, a la
You don't
Arsenal
have
Fan
to be
TV.
that crazy.
You don't have
but,
to be that crazy.
We're not against you
but
being that crazy.
we're not
either.
against you being that
Sunday
crazy
is going
either.
To, if you want to see the most
Sunday
entertaining
is going
side
to.
of
If
me,
you want to see the
Sunday,
most
I am-
entertaining
Saturday,
side
I
of
am
me,
starting work
Sunday
at 9
I
o'clock
am
at night,
Saturday I am
and
starting
I am
work at
coming
9
to the
o'clock at
game
night.
Whenever I
and
finish
I am
work.
coming
Those
to the
could be
game whenever
14
I
hours
finish
later.
work.
Both
Yeah.
of
Both
we
could
will
be
both
14
be at
hours later.
the Christmas Eve
We will
party
both
at
be
Endeavor
at
Brewing
the
this Saturday,
Christmas Eve
February
party at
29th.
Endeavor
So feel
Brewing
free to
this
come up and
Saturday,
say hi to
February
us. I
29th.
will
So
have this
feel
black
free to
vest
come up
on
and
like
say
I
hi
do
to us.
for everything
I will
else
have
I
this
do.
black vest on like I do for everything else I do.
So I'll be easy. I'll be easy to spot.
I'll be
again,
easy.
say
I'll
hi
be
to us.
easy
I
to
mean,
spot.
we talk crew.
But
That's
again,
what,
say
that's
hi
what
to us.
we
I
do
mean,
here.
we talk
And we'll
crew.
do that
That's
with
what
anybody for
we do
any
here.
amount of time.
And we'll do that with
And then
anybody
for
for
the
any
away
amount
game,
of
so
time.
I'll be doing the
And then
instant
for the
match
away
reaction
game,
for the
so
away game.
I'll be doing the
My
instant
goal
match
is actually
reaction
to
for the
get
away
out
game.
to the different
My goal
supporters
is actually
bars,
to get out to the
and
different
watch various
supporters
matches
bars.
with all of you, rather than
And
just,
watch various
watching them at
matches
home
with
and then
all of
providing
you, rather than
instant
just
match reactions
watching them at
here.
home and then
I would much
providing
rather
the
be
instant
doing
match
them
reactions
out
here.
amongst the
I would
people.
much
We
rather
are
be
men
doing
of the
them
people.
out amongst the people. We are men of the people, so to speak.
And like I said, the Crew Corner podcast will be moving.
And like I said, the
We'd
Crew
also like
Corner
to do a
podcast
segment
will
called
be
upon
moving.
further review.
We'd also
where
like to do a segment
after
called
the game,
upon further review,
emotions
where
die down.
after the game, emotions
Maybe we
die
take another look
down.
at this and get a
Maybe
better
we'll take another
understanding
look
of what
at this
actually
and
just
get a better
just happened
understanding
and
of what
explain
actually
that to
just
people with a little bit more
just
thought
happened and explain that to
and
people with a
rationale
little bit
behind
more
it. But,
thought
what are you looking forward
and
to most
rationale
this
behind
season
it.
with
But
the channel
what
and
are
with
you
the
looking
team?
forward to most this season with the channel
I'm
and with
looking
the
forward
team?
to just
I'm
seeing
looking
how
forward
this
to,
team looks.
just
completely
seeing how
new
this team
and how
looks
we really
completely
react to
new
that. We haven't
and
had
how we really
an
react to that. We
essentially
haven't
brand
had
new shiny team.
an
in
essentially brand
a
new
decade.
shiny
No, not
team
even
in
under Greg because
a
Greg
decade.
Berhalter
No,
kind of
not
took
not
over.
even under
He
Greg
did,
because
and
Greg
then he
Berhalter
brought
kind of
in
took over.
Some
He did, and then
players
he
that
brought
had
in
played for various.
some players that had
Like he brought
played
Josh
for
Williams
various-
back.
like
Josh
he brought
Williams
Josh
left,
Williams
and he came
back.
and
Josh Williams
old
left
Angel Blue
and
Eyes
came back, and
loves
old Angel Blue
loves
Eyes
Columbus a lot more
loves
than he loved New York. He
loves
did
Columbus
not,
a lot more than he
and
loved
you will,
New York.
You
He
can
did
ask
not.
him this. He did not like
and you
playing
will,
on a
you
tiny
can ask
field.
him
But
this.
Greg
he did not
Berhalter-
like playing on a
Berhalter
tiny
was a
field.
bit
But Greg
bit.
He's a
Berhalter,
big boy.
Yeah,
Berhalter
he
was a
just
bit
added
by
pieces.
bit.
This is
Yeah,
this is effectively
he just
a
added
complete
pieces. This is
overhaul.
this
and
is
it's something
effectively
new.
just a complete
I'm
overhaul,
excited to
and
see
it's
it
something
again.
new.
Sentiment.
I'm excited to see it 'cause again. Sentiment,
But it's
my
it's
thing.
going to be an exciting year.
But
and
it's
a
going to
year of
be
high
an
expectations.
exciting year, and it's a year
very
of high expectations.
And the team has
It's
set
a year of
those
very high
expectations.
expectations.
And it is
the
our
team
job
has
as
set
the
those
fans to hold
expectations.
them to
And it
those
is our job as the
expectations.
fans to hold them to those
Well said.
expectations.
Thank you very much. So that is all the time
Well
we
said.
have for Crew
Thank
Corner.
you very much. That is all the
Today,
time we have for
We
Crew
will see
Corner.
some of you all that Endeavor
Today,
Brewing on
We will
Saturday
see some
night,
of
and
you
we
all
will
that
see
Endeavor
you
Brewing
at the
on Saturday
tailgate
night,
on
and we will
Sunday
see
morning.
you
So for Crew
at
Corner, my name
tailgate
is Matt.
on Sunday morning.
And I
For
am
Crew
AJ.
Corner, my name
We'll
is
see you in
Matt,
the next video.
And I am AJ.
and we'll see you in the next video.